Wow, 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 wow. That was awesome. Absolutely awesome. Did you enjoy that?
Yes.
It got me going. Can we, before I start, I'm not going to be with you long. Could you help me to just appreciate Jude for what she's put on today? Could we appreciate her by just giving her a round of applause? Thank you so much, thank you so much. Right, so I'm Lorraine Jones, the founder of Dwayne Simpson Foundation, and the project which is really soaring within that, it's a community interest company, is Dwaynomics. So I'm going to share with you a part of my life, my world, my pains, challenges, and successes. But before I start, I want to ask you a question, probably two questions. The first one is, are you aware of the challenges which your community faces? The second is, have you contributed to the solutions to the challenges that your community is facing? And I'm going to throw in another one, which is an appeal. No matter how much we've done, there's always room for more. It could be a listening ear, it could be giving your time. Let's work together as communities to allow our communities to be safe, happy, for every single person that lives in there. And that's the questions and my appeal. So I'll fire away. Bear with me. There we go. Right, now I feel at home. So I'm Lorraine Jones. I'm 43 years old. I've got 7 children and 3 grandchildren. I grew up in Lambeth. This is the estate which I grew up in Stockwell Park Estate. Now we're looking at a population of about 318,000 in Lambeth. It's probably more now. And I grew up on this estate with my parents. I've got my mum there. Mum, can you wave? I had a brilliant upbringing. My dad was a community leader, and also he was the first person to build a recording studio in our home in Lambeth. So our house was very active with a number of different bands. We're talking about rock bands, reggae bands, gospel bands, all sorts of bands. So I was used to a diversity of people and a range of musics coming into my home. So it was a beautiful, beautiful place, very vibrant. And Lambeth, I say it's like a mini world. Why do I say that? Because there were so many different people from different nationalities, coming from different countries, different beliefs, all living together in harmony. And it was like a mini world, Lambeth. Then something happened which, bear with me. Right. I'll go back here. Now this is the Brixton riots in the 80s. I show this because I was actually out in the riots when it started. It was one of those afternoons where my mum sent my sister, my older sister, and myself to the shops, and we went to Brixton to do the shopping. And all of a sudden, there was a terrible riot that broke out. And these are just some of the images. So I remember I could see cars being turned over, heavy amount of police, blood. It was horrific. My sister got me home as soon as, but that actually, it distressed our community, Brixton, in a terrible way. I'm saying the shops were smashed in. It was absolutely awful. And I remember when I went to school, because it happened on the weekend, when I went to school, the school was a desolate place. We had a strong spirit of fear. We didn't know what was going on. We're children, and this is the way adults are behaving. As I grew up, I later understood that there was a lot of political conflicts and racial conflicts, and through the riots, as terrible as it was, there was some major changes. As I grew up, when I was about 19, I moved from Stockwell Park Estate to a place called Angeltown. It was literally just across the road, so Brixton Road separates the two estates. I got married, and I had 6 children, and it was lovely. I mean, even though the riots destabilized the community for a while, the people were unified, and that's what really made it a nice place to be. So Angeltown, it was, say that roughly the population of about 4,000 on that estate. We were like a big family there. The accommodation wasn't that great. It was an estate with lots of issues which estates have, large estates have. But the people, like I said, they were of one spirit. They shared their groceries. The children all played together. We had a lot of community centres at the time, and a lot of trips for families and children. It was absolutely awesome to be there, to be quite honest. And I really, really enjoyed myself. The only thing which I would say was a great challenge was being in Brixton. I would do my shopping in Brixton, and I came across a lot of homeless people that were begging on the streets, and that really, really disturbed me. At the time, I was attending a church, and they preach a lot about giving to your neighbour and looking after your neighbour. And I would ask questions when we have our housing meetings and when our counsellors will have their meetings, their surgeries. Why are there people on the street begging? What can be done about this? And I would hear time and time again that there's organisations that are set up to help them, and that was it. Anyway, being the radical person I am, I decided that I'm going to feed them myself. So I organised with my close friend who is here, she's recording me now, Marcia Ennin, and we literally just went out with sandwiches and flasks of tea and went out to meet these homeless people and feed them ourselves. I did that for a number of years, we're talking about 8 years, and I met some extraordinary people. I'm talking about people that they went through a divorce and they had to leave the home, they had a breakdown, they ended up on the streets. I met architects, solicitors, doctors. I met qualified people on the streets, as well as those that had been abused, misused, and they just couldn't cope. There was one lady that she couldn't cope with paying her bills. There was no support for her, and one day it was so much for her, she just left her flat and took to the streets. So I was meeting all these quality, talented people, and I said something more can be done. Anyway, for 8 years, we literally set up in Brixton, the town square, and I just had a couple of pasting board tables, brought food, drinks, and that's how we operated in serving our community in need. We then went into a place called Zadie's, and that was the first place that I was able to actually facilitate my service indoors because the council simply didn't have a place for us to operate from. But it was in that place that we were able to network with other agencies which did exist and make referrals and get a lot of these people, well, I'll say these wonderful people, off of the street and out of the situation that they were in. So over a period of, I would say, 8-9 years, I continued doing that. And in between that, I got employed by the YMCA because I wanted to branch out with my outreach. So I covered Croydon Borough. I was the first Rough Sleepers Initiative also funded by the council, outreach worker there. And I was finding homeless people in garages, in vans. It was just a nightmare, but we made a change. I then went on to work for Thamesreach, where I became a supported housing manager. So I managed a number of properties, and this was back in Lambeth. Now, doing all of that work, I managed to train a lot of people into doing quality outreach. And also I was able to invest my knowledge by doing training sessions for these organizations to equip their workers. And that's really how I became a community champion in my local community, because of the vast work which I was doing. Things were going extremely well. I had a team of up to about 30 in Brixton. The project's still going now, and I trained well over 400 people. I then extended my work to Africa. The largest crusade which I'd done, I would say outreach party we called them, was 7,000 widows that came from all over Nigeria to come and hear me speak and receive basic medication, receive also clothing, and we had dried food for them. And then we also had sessions where we would train them how to start their own business in their localities. So with that vast amount of work, I gained that respect of being an international community champion. So doing all of that, being well recognized, well loved, well appreciated, it was very painful, because when you're hearing the stories of people, it's heart-wrenching, but I know it's my calling. I'm just called to help people in need and establish establishments that's going to sustain that. Now, I've got a picture here of my son, Dwayne Simpson, and I'm going to speak a little bit about him. And the reason why I'm going to speak about him is because out of my children, he really took a lot of my ideas and sort of like ran with it. Dwayne was a very loving boy. He was a community young boy himself. He cared about the needs of the community. And he would often come home to me and tell me what's happening on the streets in Lambeth. There was a lot of knife crime, a lot of young people that were just in despair, lost, a lot of broken homes, because at this period, we're talking about in the 90s now, unfortunately, there became a great decline. We know that there's a lot of policies that was passed, and funding was cut, and it was cut, and it was cut. So in fact, literally all of our community centres were closed down, except for one little place called Angel Delight. So at this period, if you can imagine, no community centres, an estate which is really frustrated and high in youth violence and gang warfare. And Dwayne would often tell me what's going on out there, because I was just engaged with working with the homeless and vulnerable adults and those that are on drugs. And he would tell me what's happening with the youth. I didn't know it was to the extent of what he was saying. Dwayne was a very prayerful boy, so he prayed, and he also opened our door to be feeding a number of these youngsters as I was feeding the homeless. So I had a number of young people coming home that was hungry. Sometimes I'd wake up and I'll find a few on the couch. That's how Dwayne was. He was just very practical in helping in the capacity that he could. So he said to me, "Mum, it's really dangerous on the streets and there's no help. I'm going to do something myself to help these youngsters. I'm finding that they're having a lot of mental health issues, emotional pain, as well as they're unfit because they're not eating properly, they're taking drugs and drink and alcohol, having sexual relationships when they shouldn't." Dwayne was very, very disciplined with that. He said, "I want to do something to help them." I said, "Okay, what are you going to do?" He said, "I'm going to set up a project. It's a boxing and fitness project. If I can at least gather them, then I can do circuit training with them." Because he strongly believed that if he can have an impact on their mental well-being and their emotional well-being, then they'll be able to concentrate to continue their further education and get a job out of poverty. So that was his strategic plan. I'm really, really pleased to say that Dwayne managed to set that project up, and he was engaging with like young people, about 30 up to 30 a day. He started as early as 5 o'clock. I'll hear my bell ring. I knew it was Dwayne's friends that were coming to train, and he wasn't just training young people. We got mothers that were training with them, and it was going absolutely vibrant. He got his first funding from Lambeth, which was about £400. And I remember when he came home, he said, "Mum, I got some funding." I said, "That's really good." I haven't got any. But he said that. I said, "That's really good." So I remember him, choosing the boxing gloves and the mats, what he was going to buy, and it was. it was a real breakthrough for him. He was looking forward to he's setting up a gym. That was his aim. So it was absolutely awesome. That's Dwayne planning. So, he wrote his vision. He'd done a business course. He had the project going, so he had tested the market, and everything was going really, really well. So it was one of those normal afternoons for me, very, very busy. I came home and very tired. Noticed my daughters didn't do the shopping, so I said, let me pop out and just get the shopping. Dwayne was home, and I said, Dwayne, I won't be long. I'm just going to pop and get some food, and I'll be back. He was planning to watch football that evening. So I went and done the shopping, got back, unpacked the shopping, and 2 boys came ringing my bell. And they said, Mum, Dwayne's been stabbed. I said, is it serious? They said, yes, Mum. I said, do I need my car? They said, no, Mum, it's just over there. At that point, I followed them and ran. It was literally just about 5 minutes from my home across the local park where he used to train. And I met my son on the floor with the paramedics. They had conducted open surgery. So I saw his chest open. The reason why they'd done that, he had received 1 stab wound that went right through his heart. He was losing so much blood. They had to open his chest to try and to stop the blood from leaving. Anyway, what happened, they brought him to King's College Hospital, which is literally about 7 minutes from there. And we went to the hospital. Dwayne was on the life support machine for 2 days. When I saw Dwayne, in fact, when I saw him at where it happened, I knew my son had gone. His hand he was lifeless. But nevertheless, we went to the hospital. He was on the life support machine. At that stage, we had hundreds and hundreds of people when they realized it was my son come to the hospital. Seeing Dwayne on that hospital bed, on that machine, I couldn't recognize my son. He was so swollen, you couldn't recognize him. The only places that I could kiss on Dwayne was his forehead and his feet. But I kissed him and I loved him because that's what you do as a mother. And it's bizarre because a few weeks before he said, Mum, things are so dangerous on the street, I don't think I'll see my 21st birthday. And so, what do you say? Your son is dying. So I said, Dwayne, I'm here with you. I know we've had this conversation and you said you don't think you're going to make your 21st birthday, but I want you to know I'm here with you and I love you. Dwayne was a Christian, so I said, Jesus is with you and I'm with you. It was a nightmare. 2 days later, Dwayne died, and this is a funeral. The funeral was thousands attended. But then I was struck with another challenge. The young people flooding my home, telling me, Mum, Dwayne's gone. What are we going to do now? We need his project. What are you going to do to help us? Now, I'm a mother, bereaved mother in trauma, shock, and grief. And it was seeing this picture of a young boy that came into my kitchen and said, Mum, this is what happened to me, why you didn't see me. The reality of my son telling me how dangerous it is on the streets, coupled with about 3 times I had up to about 30 youth coming to my home saying, Mum, we need help, what are you going to do? That I said, okay, I'm going to have to continue to reach out despite having a broken heart. And that's when I got my 2 Richards there. If we can clap for them, please, to help me. So we birthed Dwayne Amex, Dwayne Simpson Foundation. Because I was well established in the community and in other boroughs, I used my initiative to get buy-ins from the council. I got buy-ins from the publicity, and that was through doing a campaign with David Cohen. I don't know if any of you saw that campaign. It was like a 2-week campaign. Every day they covered what's happening in our states. It's called The Estate We Live In. Through that campaign, that literally, I started out as a Mini. I'm going to refer to as a car. I started out as a Mini, starting Dwayne Simpson Foundation. With that campaign, I was then a Ferrari, zooming through. So through that media, I was able to engage with the cabinet. I was meeting with MPs, councillors, and I just got the buy-in and support of everyone. And that's how Dwayne Simpson Foundation has really, really flourished. The youth are absolutely thrilled. We have so many classes. We have classes for mothers. We have classes for father and sons. We have a number of youth classes. We also now have a disability class where the disability children are training with the other children, and that is helping them to aspire. And it's literally just taken off. If we can have the clip so they can see some of that. Can we clap, please? I'm gonna round up here. It's absolutely awesome that the help that we're getting, and we really, really do need more because there's so much more to do. We have our local police, the borough commander, which is supporting us. We have the cabinet that are also supporting us. But most of all, my appeal is, I'm going to enlighten you with some shocking figures. From 2011 until now, we've had 385,000 young people that have been killed through knife and gun crime. 128,000 of those have died through knife crime. From October till now, and we haven't got all the figures yet, we've had 574 young people killed through youth violence, killed. Not wounded. The wounded, I haven't got that figure, but I'm talking about those that have been killed. So our mission is to save these young people. Our mission is to empower them through our training projects so that they can be at that level where they can engage with other training and services that I've set up, because we're dealing with a generation that have got mental health, emotional poor health, trauma, because they're literally witnessing knife crime, gun crime, and the effects it has. Young girls as young as 13 being raped through gangs, and we need more help. So I'm a voice for them, and I'm appealing to you. The community is the majority. I always say that. Whenever I go to government meetings, it's the community that vote them in. And if we're the majority and we can all do our part, like what I'm doing, even though I have a broken heart, then our society will be a much better place to live in. Thank you.